So good morning, everybody. This is Mycah from the Mycah Show, and we apologize for the technology that we have with social media, right? New systems and everything. And, you know, I like to talk and inspire people, but when it comes to technology, it's a bit of a challenge. This month is Child Abuse Awareness. I'm a survivor of child abuse. When I was between the age of 4 to probably to the age of 13, I was abused of a relative, literally raped, assaulted. And because of my culture and beliefs, I could not share with nobody because we all deal with cultures and beliefs, and the perpetrator threatened me not to say anything. So for years, I thought it was a nightmare, a dream. And then I feel shame about myself reacting because now that an adult realize that my body reacted that way to defend as a defense mechanism. You know, every 10 minutes a child is sexually abused, assaulted, and violence, including with domestic violence also, with men and women. I take this to my heart because I believe if I provide information to you today, parents, today because you're listening, I believe that we can change this epidemic. It is during this crisis that we're dealing with, the coronavirus, it's underneath beyond that is what's happening in our neighborhood, in our homes. And let's break the silence, because if we don't break the silence, the cycle repeats over and over. It's a disease, and it repeats over, and it destroys a child's life. I went through therapy for many years. I did not love myself for many years. I was in unhealthy relationships, and then I got addicted to self-medicated prescription drugs, to now my unhealthy relationships, and to deal with what I was dealing in my trauma as a child. So I'm a survivor, and I take it to heart so we can provide information to you. And I'm honored to have a wonderful friend of mine, known me for more than 25 years, worked with her in a lot of projects. She's from San Antonio, Texas. I want to introduce Dr. Marsha Nelson, a dear friend of mine, that she'll share with us some resources, and also she'll question me what helped me to deal with my process in this situation that it really took my innocence as a child. And now as an adult, I began to love myself, embrace myself, and protect myself from people, placing things, and emotion. Dr. Nelson, welcome.
Well, good morning, Mycah. It's good to see you in your blue, because you know blue stands for Child Abuse Awareness Month. April is the month, so I really honor you for wearing the blue. What I want to do today for everyone is just give just a few statistics. I'm not big on numbers, but I want you to know that every day 4 children die from child abuse in the United States, and 70% of those are below the age of 3 years old. And 90% of the children that are sexually abused, now just think of this, 90% know the perpetrator in some way, and 68% are abused by family members. So Mycah, you are a statistic, all right? Boys, 48.5%, and girls, 51.2%, become victims at nearly the same rate. So it's I know families worry a lot about their girls, but boys should be a concern just as well as the girls. And another one is that once children have been abused, the likelihood for them to be involved in some kind of a psychological disorder, 80% of those, think about that, have some form of psychological disorder after that's happened. So we talk about our mental health in this country, and it's no surprise when we look at these numbers just why there is the incidence of so much mental health disorder. And 2.9% of the cases, now that was before the coronavirus, but 2.9% get reported every year. And what is, I think, really interesting is that 40% of the people that get abused, women or children, will reach out for help, but only 10% go to the police. So what you and I know as statistics, most of it never gets reported. And I think you'll agree with that, right, Mycah?
I think the part that we don't come to ask for help, I think it's part of the cultures being Latino, Mexicano, the shame. We're a Latino culture, or cultures within the Latino, is we're so united and loving and caring. But when it comes to situations in these crises, this epidemic, what I call it, child abuse, we tend not to be open and having conversation, dialogue. And so, because of shame, because my perpetrator said, if you reveal this to your family, first he threatened me, and it was a relative, it was a cousin. I was about, I would say 4 some years old. He was already 13 or 15 years old, so he knew what's right and wrong. And he threatened me, and through that, the people would not believe me. My parents would punish me. I believe that all that negativity, all that trauma that he threatened me, I just kept it in silence for so many years. I mean, I used to urinate from the age of 4 to maybe 13. My mom would take me to the doctor, and the doctor would just give me some medication because it was a bladder. But I was sitting in the interview with the doctor just talking about my bladder, and inside my right brain, I think my protected parent, unprotected child, was saying, no, guys, it's more than that. And somebody just talked to me, how do you feel? Has anybody touched you in your genitalia? Because it's not called the cookie. We're not going to call that. It's called the penis or the vagina. We need to be very clear to the kids because our body is our temple and be respected. So nobody said that to me, not the doctors. So for years, I was treated with medication. So one day, when the perpetrator, my cousin, walked into the room, I urinated. I was wet. And he said, you're dirty, you're disgusting. And the light bulb just went boom. That was going to be my defending mechanism for me to defend myself. So the second time he did, I did the same thing. And so he stopped coming into the room. So for years I did that, and then I gained weight. I did not love myself. I'd be isolated. I didn't have a lot of friends. And I think for those individuals that are dealing with or dealt with and still dealing with it because they don't have no tools, resources, therapy, creative art therapy, whatever that means, then we feel shame and guilt, and then we choose not to have unhealthy relationships. We choose unhealthy relationships. And then the depression, the addictions, oh my God, the addictions occur because we don't want to take the responsibility of ourselves because we feel shame. Somebody told us this is our fault. And so I know someone out there, a parent or a child, someone as an adult that went through it. This is the time to break the silence. How do we do it? We'll share with you with Dr. Nelson further on about tools. It's a process. It's not an event. Therapy is not an event. It's a process. But I believe, Dr. Nelson, our bodies were created to process the emotions, never to store the emotions. When we store the emotions, then we have challenges, physically, mentally, spiritually, psychologically. We create that chaos in our lives. And I believe that we all are created geniuses of divine. We all are. How do we unfold the creativity? What tools or methods are there to unfold that? But this situation that happened to me, it was devastating. It changed my life. But in the process of my life journey, I had to learn to forgive the individual for me. Then self-forgiveness is a very challenging. It's a lot of work to do because for a long time, I still feel responsible. It was my fault because that voice of the other person was embedded in my process of healing. You know, years later on, and through your resources, I wrote a letter to him and went to his gravesite. This is only what I did for myself. And I told him literally how I felt. Because for years, I had dreams. He would come into my dreams is that I belong to him. No one belongs to no one, first of all. And finally, I said, no, I own myself. And expressing that letter in the gravesite, it healed me. The dream stopped. So parents, we're here to provide you resources. You got to have that dialogue with your child right here, right now. We got to break the silence. And share with us, Dr. Nelson, what are the signs?
Well, some of the signs are emotional outbursts. If you have a child that's just emoting all the time. What they're really trying to give you as a signal is something's not right in their life. And also depression. Children that don't want to leave their rooms. They're very, very depressed. And moodiness. Now, I know a lot of this is hormonal. We'll just say, oh, well, you know, they're teenagers. But we don't know until we really ask that child. And we have a wonderful technique created by Dr. Lucia Capacchione, who's written 23 books. And she is a pioneer in art therapy and expressive arts therapy. And one of her books is really great. And I know parents are at home now wondering, what are we doing with these children? Because they are having some emotional outbursts. This one's called The Creative Journal for Children, a guide for parents, teachers, and counselors. There's 72 wonderful activities in this book that can be used. All you need is some paper and some markers or crayons. And there's also a wonderful activity. I have a program called the Creative Journal for Schools that we used in the Edinburgh School District in Texas. And what we did is we had each day, these 3 times a week for 15 minutes a day, the teachers, each child would have one of these journals. And they would draw whatever the prompt was at the bottom. And this says, color me sad. I draw a picture of how I feel when I am sad. I draw about my sad picture. I draw that, and then I'm going to write about it. And I write a poem called When I'm Sad. So they would draw a picture of a time they're sad on this side, and over here, they're going to write about the picture. So that what we're doing is we're getting our children in tune with seeing their feelings out on paper. And it's vital that we are able to connect with our child, because sometimes they can't talk about the feeling. I'm sure, Mycah, you couldn't have talked about it. But had your mother asked you to write about what you were sad about, you just would probably have drawn a situation like that. You couldn't help it.
Or just have a conversation, as you know, this crisis, besides the child abuse awareness, everything during this crisis that we're dealing with global wide, it gives us also an opportunity to have family conversation. How do we feel? What are the resources? And I think it's a time for all parents, break the taboos. There's those cultures that, you know, if we don't talk, to go away, because in the Latino population, and it could be a lot of cultures, we don't talk about it, go away, it doesn't go away. The big elephant is right in the front of the living room, right? And it's there, it's going to stay there until we deal with it. And I think that, you know, I wish I could say, you know, my perpetrator, my cousin, not only abused me sexually, abused my brother, that is an artist in California, abused him sexually. And I think that somehow my brother probably was aware and maybe confronted him. And so then he took it on me, and his anger physically and literally just raped me. And I remember that very vividly. As right now we speak, I could see those snapshots. But I could deal with those snapshots because I have the tools, and I'm learning the tools from this. I don't have the anger no more. I have peace with myself. People know me that I am an inspirational person, compassion. I stand very strong on this awareness of domestic awareness, violence awareness, child abuse awareness, because I want to say the expert, but I'm the product of that experience that I process and deal with. And it's a day by day. No one, you know, I'll die with this, Dr. Nelson. My innocence, I can't find my innocence. Somebody took that innocence from me as a child. And so I keep myself busy with creativity, inspiring people. But in my heart, there's something there always. It's going to be that. No therapy is going to replace that. But through the grace of my divine, my God plays a strong role in this for me, that I have faith, even to the trauma that I deal with, I heard this voice, and I think it's from the right side, the creativity and the spiritual side. There's hope, there's strength, because I went through 3 times attempt suicide. And I was very grateful that God put people in my life at the time that I was going to execute that situation. And I'm very grateful. And those individuals that were there to save me, they're no longer here on this planet, but I always sometimes to take a moment in silence, and I thank them, because I think they were my angels. They came there and just to shift that little curve that I was dealing with, because we all go through that. We don't know that, like I said, we'll talk about depression. All that stuff is going to happen to us if we don't ask for help. We don't find the resources to treatment, because there's a combination of treatment. The therapy and the creative art therapies is a combination. It was my responsibility as an adult to find the resources, to be more creative, find creativity to my hope. That was my hope. My hope was to find resources I wanted to change my life. And people probably just discovered right now, I was addicted to prescription medication for a long, long time. And so one day, it was in the early 90s, I went to a wonderful place, a retreat called Rocio. And you invited me, Dr. Nelson, and Dr. Lucia Capiconi, had this retreat. And it's for that moment, and I was in an unhealthy relationship also. For that moment, and I was recovering from my first or second spinal surgery injury. And so I was taking medication, prescription medication. And so that voice told me that weekend, don't go to the retreat, stay home because you have company, you have the brunch coming up with mimosas and all that stuff. But something told me, go to the retreat. And I'm grateful for my intervention, divine intervention, the angels or whatever they were, people. I went to that weekend, and guess what? I learned something for those techniques. I learned something from you, Dr. Nelson, and Dr. Lucia Capiconi. Wonderful people that have been walking in my life journey. I'm grateful for that. But Monday, when I got home, I ended the unhealthy relationship, and I discovered my inner self, Mycah. And through that therapy, 3 years, something told me, and I remember one of my mentors, because you're also one of my mentors, my dear friend, Dr. Nelson. I worked for hospice for about almost 10 years. And a strong leader, mentor for me, was Sister Stromeyer, well known. She was in Mother Teresa in South Texas. She said, son, there's more. God is going to give you more on a platform to expand. And perhaps, and she said, perhaps your name will change. So some of people knew me as my past name. And people say, why did you change your name? My name was Jolie. And when I changed my name to Mycah Lee, my world changed. I learned from the past. I could no longer be that Jolie. I am Mycah. So a lot of people right now say, oh, wow, you just don't know what life brings you in gifts and prosperity and loving and kindness and abundance. And so my abundance was part to let go of that experience, and it was part of my name. And I remember going to court with my attorney and changed my name. And I heard this loud victory voice inside of me when the judge appoints my name and registers my name as Mycah Lee. I literally heard this voice, and I believe, this is my only belief, people, I think it was the angel celebrating when he said, you're now officially, your name is Mycah Lee. I heard that loud voice of celebration. And I've not shared with so many people with that. But that was the process of me healing. And so in going back of the culture's perpetrator jeopardizing our life journey, but also threatening us. So those are the people that need to know that nobody owns me. I own Mycah. And it's been a process. And I continue encouraging parents. You're listening right here, right now. Today, you're going to have this conversation with your child, with your family. Break, again, I emphasize this, break the silence of taboos. Share with us, Dr. Nelson, anything else.
Well, also for helping your child, one really great way to do that is to talk about, always engage in a conversation about how they feel, and just communicate with them. And if you sense something, address the issue immediately. Don't wait, just confront the matter. And a really good thing to remember is always keep the comments in the I. I feel that you're taking advantage of me, or I feel. You don't just say to somebody, you did this and you did that. No, you teach the children how to put it in the I feel, because then they won't be criticized. Anybody has a right to their feelings. And also teaching the children how to express themselves and teaching the child not to insult, because insults just start the trigger and it keeps going on and on. And definitely when you talked about the right brain, Mycah, I really appreciated that, because that's where our emotional, our intuition, our higher power, our creative side is the right hemisphere. And what I really appreciated that you said was that we know what people in our lives are toxic, which ones are safe and which ones are trouble. And we need to teach our children to listen to that voice inside. If they feel somebody's not safe, then they're not. And you don't need to question why. I think a lot of the sexual abuse in the churches and all years ago, I'm sure a child came home and told their parents, I don't want to go to church anymore. The priest and probably the child got punished, and you don't talk about the priest like that. So I'm sure that many children told their parents, but the parent shut the child down because the priest was viewed as an authority. So we've got to listen. We've got to communicate with our children. And here's the real key. This needs to be taught in the schools, Mycah. I know as a school teacher in California, I had a situation one time where I had a little boy in class, an only child. The next year, his parents adopted 2 little girls. And one of the little girls was in my classroom. And the little girl began to tell me and to my aide about how she would sit on her daddy's lap and shave him. And she, things that a little 3rd grader shouldn't be doing. And I went to the principal and I told the principal, look, this is what's happening in my classroom, because, by law, you have to report it. And I said, but would you give me 2 more days? Just, take a few more notes, because every day the child's coming in and telling us these stories. Well, the school nurse came in the classroom the very hour later when I came back in the classroom and took the child out. And the nurse began to say, is your daddy messing with your private parts? And of course, what's the child going to say to the nurse? Oh, no, oh, no, oh, no. Well, a week later, the family moved from California to Arkansas. So I felt horrible about that situation, because I did what I needed to do. But I really believe that sometimes our administrators are not aware of how to handle these situations. And it was handled so poorly, that child, who knows whatever happened to the child. But, I just had that happen to me. And I know that a lot of times children reach out and parents dismiss it. So we as parents or teachers need to be really aware if that child brings something to us, pay attention, because you could be the lifeline. And I'm sure, Mycah, along the way, you probably said something, but
I think
no one listened.
I think that my mom, later on, my brother told me the story. My mom, I think, caught them, my cousin and my brother got disciplined. My mom was the wonderful person, but didn't have the resources and tools and the whole thing with the culture and the machismo and all that stuff, any culture. And my mom punished my brother shares this with me. I don't remember that, but he does it very visually. That it was very clear to him. Put him in a closet for a while. But my grandfather kind of intervened and said, what's going on? And she did not share that with my grandfather. I believe this, Dr. Nelson. My grandfather was very inspirational for me. I believe that if I would reveal this information to my grandfather, being in his background, very protective of his family, I think he would take action, and it would be the consequences. I would have lost my grandfather in prison. My grandfather could have hurt my cousin. So for that reason, I chose not to. That was my safety net, and my safety net was not to share to anybody, because I knew the outcome. And in that age, I knew something. The outcome and consequences would not be very kind to the family. And being my perpetrator constantly reminded me that. So I chose to be in silence for so many, many years. And so, going back to that situation with the nurse, her beliefs or was be direct. Sometimes we can't be direct in the situation, and we have said, so just share with me why you're sad, and then let the child share with you. A male parent would act this way. Did he touch you right there? Well, the child's already know by your tone of voice not to share that. Right. Just have a kind conversation. What is a kind conversation, parents? Share with me how you feel today. And if the child wants to draw, let him draw. You know, it's expressing the emotions. We all dealing with this crisis right now. So what do? Just you know, with stress, we just get some markers and papers, and I do that scribble. And then if something pops out, I question that. But it's how we were brought up, I think. Not besides the value, it's how we brought up and communicate, the value of communication, what I call it. And this is the time that you as a parent listening to me, sit down today. Today is the day where you will have maybe breakfast, lunch, dinner. And guys, you're going to just have a family time. Give yourself 5 to 10 minutes having this conversation. You will learn more from your child. The child will learn from you about unconditional love. And so for me, I disliked myself for so many years. And I pretend in the public eye, as you know, and speak and motivate people in the public eye behind the curtain. I was dealing with my own demons. Until one day, I went to that workshop in South Texas. And later on, I continued those treatments. What gave me strength through all that is the tools that I'm continuing learning. You know, I survived and processed the child abuse. I lost my partner almost 25 years ago. I lost my dear mother. But you know what gave me the strength, the tools that I've continued learning from Dr. Mycah Show, from you, Dr. Nelson, and from other clinicians, other life coaches that I chose to take ownership. I chose to be the driver of my bus. We got to be the driver of our own bus. Remember the talk show that I used to have many years in Texas? And, you know, the slogan was, you're the driver of your child's bus. You have to be the driver of your own bus. Passengers will stop. You'll stop on the first stop. Those are passengers who teach you something. But Houston, we have a problem. When those passengers become the driver of your bus, you have a problem because you're giving that person ownership of your destination or of your life journey. They're only passengers, people, places, things, and emotions to teach us something in our life journey. We take it apart, we learn from it, and we put in perspective what is going to benefit in our life journey. So, yeah, going back to the situation with that nurse, it's how do we approach? And the thing is, when you get questioned and questioned to the same situation, the child gets overwhelmed from, did he touch you? Did he touch you in the genitalia? How did it happen? You know, you have to repeat it to those clinicians, maybe once, to authority, and then implement tools, creative tools, therapy tools for that child and the family. Because not only the child feels guilty, the parents feel guilty too. You know, you just mentioned the stat, you know, 90% of the child knows who it is, 30% is a family member, and it keeps growing. So it is your responsibility to change those stats. Today, you have a conversation. Share with us any further tools or therapy, Dr. Nelson, that a parent could just spend time today.
Well, I think now that we're all confined in our homes, I think this is a great time for us to sit down with those children. And we're going to talk about how does it feel to be around somebody that feels safe and someone that feels unhealthy or unsafe. And we want to do things together. The more that you bond with that child and do things with that child, the more they're going to begin to trust you as a reliable source. And a very, very important thing that we want to really stress is give a child tools, give them phone numbers. If you're suspecting something's not right, tell a neighbor, tell a relative, have somebody in your line around you that knows the situation. And if they see something, they know how to call the authorities and get help. But a child should always be given a number, the 911 number, if something goes wrong, because we need to give our children tools. And also, if you're under stress as a parent, you need to explain that to your child. Look, I'm under a lot of stress, and when you act a certain way, then it's putting more stress on this household. So, you know, it's communication. Just because those children are young doesn't mean they don't understand. Many times our children understand way more than we as adults. So give them credit and learn as much as you can about one another. I think that's going to be a takeaway from being confined in this COVID-19, is that we're spending a lot more time together, and you're noticing situations with your family members that maybe you hadn't noticed before because you're with them all the time. So I just say that our family is our strongest unit, and if we can't trust what's in our home, who can we trust? So we know that this is the month to pay attention to child abuse, and after this is over, perpetrators are now, of course, when a perpetrator gets emotionally triggered, it's going to cause them more, give them more reason to hurt someone else. And you know, they talk about prisoners in jail that have been sexually abused, and many times they'll ask them, and it's been said that a perpetrator will say, look, there's only two kinds of people. There's those that hurt people, and there's those people that get hurt. And I got hurt as a child, and I didn't want to be hurt anymore. So I became the one that hurt people. So there again, if you see children in your home and one's always picking on the other one, you need to find out what is the anger in that child that motivates them to want to hurt someone else, because that's a stepping stone to bullying. And bullying is a big problem in our country right now. And when we see it, we need to address it. We need to talk about it. And that child that's hurting another child, that's when we need to have them use the tools, scribble out their feelings. What are they feeling so hurt or upset or violated that they would want to hurt someone else? And that's a really great place to start to communicate. Again.
Can you do it also? Can you do it in drawing? Can you do it in clay? Can you do it, what other tools?
You can do it in clay. You can do it in finger paints. You can do it with chalk. You can rip up paper if you're really angry. You can write a letter to somebody on a piece of paper and you can rip it up. You never have to give it to them. But what we are teaching a child to do is get the feelings out, because any feeling that gets stuffed in the body, that's where addiction sets in. Because what happens if you can't express yourself? You said it, Mycah. You got addicted to medication. Because why? You were using the medication to keep those feelings stuffed inside so you didn't have to feel. Because when you started to think about being abused, it made you feel very uncomfortable, and you don't like to feel those feelings. Nobody likes to feel uncomfortable. So we use addiction. My late husband, after he passed years ago, I remember going out shopping every day, and I don't even like to shop, but I try to push down those feelings of being abandoned. So we use all kinds of addictions. Las Vegas is a beautiful example of people who are stuffing down feelings, because when you're having a good time in Vegas, you don't think about anything else but all the lights and the glitter and rolling the dice or whatever you do. So there are many kinds of addictions. It's not just drugs. It's just not alcohol. But our country is really riddled today, and we've got to look at the underlining base of why the addiction is happening. And right now, alcohol sales are up 60% from what they were before COVID. So what are people doing? They're using the alcohol to stuff the feelings of maybe being abandoned, of, you know, not being able to get out. Whatever the feelings are, they're stuffing them down. So we're going to see a lot of social injustice and a lot more abuse when this is over, because lots of things are happening right now in the home. So if you're a neighbor, I love on NPR how they talk about mail carriers. If you hear or see something, report it, because you're the lifeline to saving a child. So Mycah, I really thank you today for sharing this, because it's so important that we can tell our stories and that we can reach out for help. And this has been a beautiful example of collaborating and joining together for all of the good for everyone. So today is the day. If you haven't begun communicating as a family, as working with your child, today is the day. Just
so they can remember to call if the local number 911. There's a National Child Abuse Awareness Hotline. In your country, you have some authorities and you stick to those authorities to have justice for the child. The parents, like I used to say in my own show, you're the driver of your child's bus. And you got to wake up, shake up to this crisis. You got to wake up. We can make a change today to have conversations and communicate very clearly with our family and relatives. I have no anger no more. It took me so many, I'm past 153. And I have no more anger towards myself. I have no anger to that individual. It's a process that I went through for years. I don't expect you to do the process overnight. What I expect for you parents and listeners is to have these conversations. The conversation of domestic violence and child abuse awareness. You've got to have this conversation and talk when schools open the next season, school year. Have these counselors, have these resources, schools, at church, everything. You know, any clergy should have some kind of, whatever that religion, should have some kind of tools and have these conversations, because that is the responsibility of leaders to have programs in their institution. It could be in the religion institution, in the academic institution. They should have those resources to have these conversations. The reason we have these crises global-wide, because we're a society with shame-based of our own body. And as soon as we break those taboos that this is our body, you know, a child is born, Dr. Nelson, and it touches his body. And what do? We keep him away from touching his body. It's trying to explore. As long as you don't hurt yourself or hurt others, you're learning things in life. So parents today, any last words, Dr. Nelson?
Well, first of all, I want to thank you. This has been a great opportunity to share. And I say communicate and let everybody in the family know the situation, and don't let a perpetrator use their power to hurt. And a lot of times, just let a child know where's a safe place in the house where they can be, or outside, but get away from anybody that's abusing them. And, you know, your tactic of wetting yourself, soiling yourself, that was your defense mechanism. So everybody needs to have their own defense mechanism. In our work, we call it your own inner protective parent. So whatever you need to do to protect yourself, but we need to teach children that they have the right to protect themselves. And
any books, you know, I use this book. I don't know if y'all can see this book because you can see it. It's called The Art of Emotional Healing from Dr. Lucia Capicchione. What is your website, Dr. Nelson?
It's www.luciaac.com. Lucia, LUCIAC.com. And
they can find resources, anything that doing not only the topic that we're talking about today, the child abuse awareness, but other personal stuff that we're dealing with, business and all that stuff. These are resources, parents, our special guests. These are the resources. You can go to her website or to any other clinician website, whatever will help you to process the healing of this crisis. Dr. Nelson, thank you very much from the Mycah Show. I want to thank everyone today. Today, I want you all to have conversations with your family and relatives, and especially your kids, because, you know, parents, you're the one in charge. And just listen to your child. This is an epidemic that we can break the silence and have conversation, because those numbers are increasing as of today. Like I mentioned earlier, every 10 minutes a child is abused sexually or in violence. And let's break that cycle. So thank you. I'll send you from Los Cabos to everybody. Mucho, mucho amor. I'll send you lots of love. Dr. Nelson, thank you very much. You all have a wonderful day.
Thank you.